Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! For context, at the time I was in my late 20s, at the early stages of an MS diagnosis, and having a horrible day. This was in late 2009. There I was in all my glory wearing my horribly green-colored polo, training a new girl at the till. I had been in the store for over 10 hours at that point, and I was at my wit's end. The girl that I was training was absolutely so good when it came to catching on to the intricacies of the system and really knew what she was doing. As I'm standing in the office, I hear the chime of the door opening and look out to see this scrawny little guy. Maybe in his late 30s. He seemed like a nice gentleman, so I walked to the edge of the counter, leaning against it as my new co-worker put on her customer smile. "How can I help you today, sir?" "I'm going to be filling up. Not sure how much." Note here in my state, every pump is prepay. If you are filling up, we tend to waive that and hold on to the money, hand it to us so we can give the change back. "No problem, sir." The guy puts $50 on the counter and walks away towards the restroom when the ding-in for the pump goes off. The new coworker of mine turns on the pump for what appears to be his wife. Seems like a perfectly normal thing, right? Wrong. The pump hits $20 and we hear the distinct call of a wild and very angry Karen. We both look up to see the man's wife screaming bloody murder. She's throwing things and having a full-blown tantrum next to the pump. She's punching and kicking him before turning slowly towards the window where she sees us standing wide-eyed at her antics. Beside me I hear, "Oh no." I turn to see the poor scrawny soul his mouth agape at what he's witnessing, and I can swear at this point, the Karen has become full-blown possessed. She comes barreling in like a bull seeing red and begins to scream at my new co-worker. "You stupid jerk! Why didn't you turn off the pump?" "Miss, he said he was filling up." As she points to the scrawny little guy. "No, he said put $5 in, you stupid cow." So I say, "No ma'am, he didn't." Her eyes turned to me and a vicious scowl came across her face. Sir?" I said, "Fill up, honey." She begins screaming about us stealing from her children, jumping and stomping on the floor. Now keep in mind none of this is making any sense to me, and yes, it seems like a jumbled mess that is just totally absurd, but my friends, it gets better. She looks at my co-worker and reaches over the till trying to grab her. My co-worker pulls back while the woman begins to attempt to crawl over the counter. The man is just standing there and I can see the utter shock on his face. "Enough!" I said it loud enough that the woman stopped and looked at me. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "I'm going to beat both of you." I took a breath and slowly began to smile. I turned towards the co-worker and said, "Here is my logout information. As soon as you hit it, I want you to call the cops." "What are you doing?" "Well, you said you wanted to kick my butt. So I'm logging out." I'm taking off my name tag and my jacket. She's looking at me with this shocked expression. My coworker is now on the phone with 911. "Walk outside, miss. We will take care of this really quickly." "But..." "No, you threatened me and my coworker. So let's do this." "But you can't." "Oh yes, I can." I began walking towards her. This scrawny guy finally wakes up and comes in front of me. No need for that, ma'am. I will take care of it." "Oh no, sir, I don't take threats lightly." And in walks one of the county's finest, who sees us stand off. He says, "Oh Lord, who riled her up?" Now the officer knows me and has seen me angry before. That is a whole other story though. Karen says, She threatened me." But the scrawny guy says, "You started this." All of us give statements and the officer looks at the camera footage and shakes his head. She was arrested for trying to assault the new co-worker, but also ends up that she has meth on her. The scrawny guy apologized over and over and paid for the gasoline, and also bought us both a drink. Note that the man ended up filing for divorce and took custody of both the children. He had come in a few months later, Apparently, he didn't know she was doing drugs and he was sick with the big C word. Last I heard, he was on his last round of chemo, and I had moved out of town a few months after. Setting the stage. Before I, 25 female, transferred to a university for college, I was at a state college for my AA. While I was there, I did several plays with a director who we will call Dr. D. She was strict but very effective and super sweet when we were not rehearsing. When COVID hit, I had to stop my degree and move back home. A few months into this, I started a job on the college campus and my mother was taking classes. She got involved with the plays with Dr. D. I also want to note that the college allows alumni and community members to participate in the plays. Act 1, Scene 1. Dr. D was doing a play and my mother had a main role. I decided to jump in and help with the costumes. Everyone in the cast was very nice, except for one enter Chad. Chad was in his late 60s, early 70s. He had decided to pursue acting and was taking drama classes with Dr. D. He was a nightmare. He argued with Dr. D about anything under the sun. If Dr. D wanted him to give a line a certain way, he would argue back or blame the person he was with for giving their line the incorrect way. And heaven forbid you forgot your line or said the wrong one. He also snapped at me a few times over costumes. If it wasn't for Dr. D, I would have made me and my mother drop out, but we stayed and we were grateful when the play was over and we wouldn't have to see him again. Or so we thought. Act 1, Scene 2. A few months later, I was working in my chosen field, having finished my degree, and my mother was still active on campus. She was helping in Dr. D's new play and was in charge of costumes. However, Chad was the assistant director. According to Dr. D, no one else wanted to do it, and she needed the help. My mother would come home each week with horror stories of Chad. He would yell at the actors when Dr. D was not around, argue with Dr. D about blocking, line delivery, and so on. At the same time, the main girl was never at rehearsal, and as the performance drew nearer, Dr. D panicked. Less than a week before the performance, she handed me a script and asked me to take over lead. I don't know how the girl took it. She hadn't been to rehearsal in weeks and I never met her after. As I said, I had worked with Dr. D for, at this point, years and had done several plays with her, so I jumped in. How I managed to memorize and perform a 2-act play seamlessly, I have no idea. And yes, I'm bragging because I'm extremely proud of myself for it, and I know I will never be able to do that again. At this point, I got to see Chad in action. Act 2, Scene 2. He constantly yelled and made snide comments. I only had a weekend and 2 days to participate, so the cast met very often. He would take over the line reading saying he did it better and that we needed to keep up with him. The day before, we had a full dress rehearsal on the stage, and the whole time he was yelling backstage at us over props we wouldn't use till Act 2, to the point that Dr. D had to stop rehearsal, walk backstage, and yell at him to shut up. When we were cleaning up, Dr. D told me to sit some of the closing on stage, which he hated and yelled at me for, but I stood my ground because Dr. D wanted it and she was in charge. He told my mother I was a disrespectful brat, and my mother told him that no, I was not. Act 2, Scene 3. The night of the play, we had 2 performances. Between the first and the second show, my mother was working on our hairs in the ladies' dressing room when he stormed in screaming, "You need to be on stage! What are you doing?" No, he was not allowed in the dressing room. He was supposed to call from the door places 5, which means be in your place in 5 minutes. I jumped up and hustled towards the stage while the girls yelled at him to get out. When I got backstage where my blouse was, I was in a tank top and the blouse stayed backstage. I ran into Dr. D, who joked with me and made her way to the audience. My mother joined me, and as we were walking toward the stage entrance, she was setting up my mic back. I could see Chad at the same entrance cursing up a storm. I could hear bits and pieces and then heard my name. I was about to pass him when I heard him say, OP is so disrespectful. Just do your job. I stopped in front of him and said, "Why are you talking bad about me? I'm about to go on stage." He turned and screamed, "Stay out of it." As I was passing, I said, "Just stop talking about me and focus." At this point, I was just past him, and he turned and punched me in the back of my shoulder. I almost dropped to the floor. It was that hard. I straightened and turned, and in a millisecond I had to decide, do I beat this man out or yell? I chose to yell because my mother was between us. "You can't hit people. You just hit me." "I'll do it again. Stay out of it." At this point, he started charging me when my mother rammed him into the wall, got in his face and said, "Don't you dare touch my daughter." At this point, he snapped out of it and became remorseful. He kept going, "Oh, I'm sorry, hit me instead," over and over again. All this happened when the overhead announcement for cell phones and flash photography were going off, so no one in the audience heard. We have been surrounded by the other actors and stagehands who witnessed this happen. One of the actresses grabbed my hands and helped me get on stage. I have little to no memory of that second performance. According to the stagehands and the audience, I did amazing. I really have no memory, but apparently I didn't miss a line, emotion, or blocking. While I was on stage for 2 acts and I was almost never off, this is what happened. One of the actresses told the stagehand to get Dr. D and threatened Chad with security if he did not leave. He walked off and Dr. D met him. She forced him to leave and chewed him out. After the play, I was told if I wanted to go to campus security, I could. It was my choice. It was 11 p.m. and campus security had already gone home. Epilogue. The next morning, I went and reported Chad to the campus police. I was able to give a list of the witnesses who confirmed my story. Several things were revealed when they spoke to the witnesses. He was body-shaming one of the actresses, telling her she needed to trim up for the role and was too bulk. He had been inappropriately touching one of the actors. The poor kid was 18 and didn't know if it was a normal theater thing. He didn't know who to talk to and it came out to the campus police. He later told us what had happened. The stagehands only worked with us for 3 days and the whole time he bullied and berated them. He would scream in their face for the smallest stuff. Most of the stagehands were 18 or 19-year-olds who were there to volunteer or for extra credit in their drama class. This next part is karma and a bit of revenge. He was expelled from the school and banned from attending any more school-related functions. As I said, the community and the alumni were allowed to attend certain events. Dr. D and I took it one step further. She reached out to all her theater contacts and he is banned from performing, volunteering, or assisting in anything theater-related anywhere near where we live and some. That way, history cannot repeat itself. My Gmail account got hacked way back in the day, 2008, before 2FA. I never found out how, but I'm guessing it was a dictionary attack. I had a short and weak password. I stupidly had my PayPal account under the same email address and had the same crappy password. And of course I had PayPal linked to my old checking account, though online banking had different credentials. And after I realized I was hacked and went to see how bad the damage was, of course there was a new transfer of $500 from my PayPal via the checking account to a different PayPal account. I hadn't used that checking account for a few years and its balance was basically zero. I called the bank, told them what was going on, closed the account, and they confirmed that any pending withdrawals would simply fail when they got them. I was in the clear on their side. I checked the still pending PayPal transfer and found that there was an email address associated with the distinction account. I looked around, mostly Google searches, nothing fancy, and found that the email address belonged to a college kid in California. I found his Facebook account, a bunch of other social media accounts, and the college that he went to. I messaged him on one of the social media accounts and told him that if he didn't send the $500 back, that I would file a police report till his parents, who I had found on Facebook, about his deeds and reported to his college to get him kicked out, and he needed to do it right now. Before the $500 he took went through, he didn't know it would fail or that my bank account was closed. He sent $500 back right away. The $500 in his direction failed, and then the $500 in my direction went through. I did not file a police report, but I sent the whole thing to his parents and his college. Of course, I left out the details about me blackmailing him for $500. There was nothing he could do to get it back without incriminating himself. So I had $500 free, and it was clear that I moved to a different bank account later. I think he learned his lesson, or maybe learned to change passwords after taking an account and to not use a personal email address. And I learned to have better passwords and 2FA. And I had an adventure and scored $500. So here is a little story from my middle school. Back when I was in 7th grade, my class would always play knockout at every recess. Other than 4 squares, it was the most popular game at the school. But one day, some annoying teachers thought it was too rough and too unkind to other players. Their reasoning was you shouldn't be able to hit or knock another player's ball away. So one day they gave us a long lecture and made a new rule so that you could not touch another player's ball. My entire class was not happy with this new rule. So fast forward a few days, we decided to revert to the old way of playing. And of course, the teachers stopped us. They gave us the same lecture as before. Next day, we reverted to the old way again. But this time the teacher decided to ban us from playing knockout. A few of my buddies then came up with a new game called Flinger. The rules are exactly the same as knockout, except instead of knocking the ball, you fling the ball. An annoying teacher comes up to us while we were playing Flinger and says, "I thought we told you that you weren't allowed to play knockout anymore." My friend replies, "But we aren't playing knockout." "It sure looks like knockout to me." "This is Flinger, ma'am. You fling the ball rather than knock it." The teacher then told us to stop playing Flinger, and she stormed off. Next week, there was a sheet of paper on the windows in each classroom that read, "Official rules of knockout and Flinger." Yeah, good luck with that. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.